Constitution and Section 75 of the Police Service Act, it does not reveal any inconsistency as alleged by Mr. Balgobin Maraj, supported by his attorney at law, Anand Ramlogan. The 2023 Extension of Service Order, which was published by Her Excellency, does not amount to an appointment, which is the sole province of the Police Service Commission. It is not an appointment of an officer, because the officer, in this case, Madam Erla Harewood Christopher, was already appointed by the Police Service Commission, as it must, as it should. And I had said so at the time. So that the challenge that it was the cabinet and Her Excellency who appointed Mrs. Harewood Christopher was absolutely wrong, because that person was already appointed by the Police Service Commission, and all that was happening at the executive level was an extension of service in accordance with the law, the Act. The second question that came for consideration for the Court of Appeal was whether the Section 75 of the Police Service Act imposes a discretion on Her Excellency to extend the term of service of the Commissioner, or whether that discretion properly belonged to the Cabinet. On that matter, the Court of Appeal found that Section 75 of the Act provides that notwithstanding Section 74 or any other written law, the President may, in relation to a police officer of the 1st Division, which she was, or B, the Commissioner, which she was, may, in relation to a police officer in the 2nd Division, where he considers it, he meaning the President, in the national interests, extend, that should be 1st Division, I'm correcting that from, it says here 2nd, but it should read 1st Division, where he, the President, considers it in the national interest, extend the years of service of the police officer after he has reached the prescribed age of retirement for a period of 1 year in the first instance, and thereafter subject to annual review for a maximum of 2 further periods of 1 year each. Just restating the law as is written and as we had explained at that time. Thus, properly construed, the court continues, the President was obliged to act on the advice of the Cabinet. The decision as to what was in the national interest is quintessentially an executive function which Cabinet is best placed to assess. So the court is saying that is not we business. What is in the national interest is a matter for the Cabinet. But insofar as the extension of service is concerned, the law provides for that, and it is within the President's power to treat with it once the recommendation came from the Cabinet, as it did. The third issue that arose this morning was before the Court of Appeal was whether Section 75 of the Act violates the high principle of the separation of powers and is therefore illegal and unconstitutional. A challenge, an attack, saying that Section 75 of the Police Service Act breaches the high principle of separation of powers. To that, the court pronounced in the face of this challenge, We have considered the Privy Council's decisions in the cases of Chandler, Ferguson, Matadine, and also the South African case of the state versus Zuma, amongst others. In applying the principles established in those cases, we conclude that there has been no violation of the doctrine of separation of powers. And the court concludes, for all these reasons, we recognize as somewhat different from the trial judge's reasons, the appellant's submissions on the issues are without merit. They have all failed. We therefore affirm the judge's decision, meaning at first instance, on the issue. In those circumstances, we are of the view that the appeal must be dismissed. Now, I take this in stride as Minister of National Security, as a member of the cabinet, as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, because, as I indicated earlier, the state seldom finds any friends to defend it. I get the impression in our country that very often, persons, no reference to what is in front of us now, I'm generalizing, seek sectarian, personal, political, and other interests. And I have found from my observation that it is a rare occasion when persons stand in defense of the state. As an officer of the state, I recognize it as my duty so to do, having taken the oath that I have taken. And I'm sure I'm not a lonely player in this regard. But I take great comfort that this legal challenge to the exercise of the powers under Section 75 of the Police Act was found by a court after due contemplation this morning to have been frivolous and, in my view, vexatious, and one of many like it. And the court dealt with it. So the position is, members of the media, that the appointment by the Police Service Commission of Madam Erla Herwood Christopher and the extension granted to her by the government was found to be quite appropriate under the law and so upheld by the court. Thank you very much.
The Mother Church of the Anglican Diocese suffered significant damage during the earthquake of 2018. Efforts are underway to raise funds to restore this national heritage site. You are invited to make your donations with monthly deposits at any branch of the First Citizens Bank, account number 2696950, Marval Road Branch, in the name of the Incorporated Trustees of the Anglican Holy Trinity Cathedral Restoration.